Sunday morning, everybody. Welcome to this baby we call The Sweat, a show we bring you every Saturday and Sunday morning, 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock Eastern Time here on DK Network and VSiN. I am your host, Emerson Lancy. Steve Buchanan, nice little tattoo here on your arm. Julian Edlow back in his flannel.
Ink-free as well.
Oh, wow, really?
Tattoos.
You've never thought about getting one? What's
Thought about getting
you?
one of you on my chest and then passed. And
Whoa!
Never thought about any other ones.
We don't call it The Sweat for nothing, baby. Here's what we got coming up on the show. David Ortiz, Big Papi, in the big DK studio. That would be this one that we are inside right now. EPL title on the line. Two teams all coming down to the final game of the season. And then the PGA Championship has been the best golf tournament of the year. Who comes out on top? Tough to see someone breaking away. This major in the last 10 years has had the smallest margin of victory. Cream always rises to the top in this event. You just saw Colin Morikawa up there. He's tied for first. He said yesterday, guys, it's nice to have people root for you, and I feel like people aren't rooting for me out here. So he is going to be a little motivated. I'm not quite sure what else he wants, but we will see. I would love it if you could help me win $10 today. That's for sure.
Wow.
I know. Have you guys been watching at all, or you're just into the Scheffler stuff?
The Scheffler stuff was great, but...
Yeah, he played like crap yesterday. So he spent too much time behind bars, and now he's struggling to make it on the outside and adjust to life again. Let's start working up a sweat, people. Who wants to go first? Jules? You want it?
Go first.
What's a storyline? What's a bet? Give me something that is going to make us sweaty.
We got two Sunday Game 7s, so I would go away from the NBA if I could, but I feel like we gotta be here. There's only one WNBA game, and after yesterday, WNBA didn't go as well for me.
Wow. Do you want to tell people what happened to you yesterday with the WNBA?
Yeah, that is worth.
You have to tell people.
One of the bets that we gave out on the show was the Asia Wilson points total over. 22.5. The best number was available on DK Sportsbook. She was at 24 in the box score.
Right.
That's a win. Then she was at 22. I haven't seen exactly what happened. It was stat corrected, and that's how you change a winner from a loser. That happens in player props. It's annoying.
Something tells me it had...
that just seems egregious, though. Like rebounds, assists, like I could see. But points is pretty egregious.
See, in the NBA, sometimes it happens on, like, tip-ins, but it's more like above the rim. Which I don't know. Maybe there was a dicey tip-in. I had to go to a 4th birthday party at a bowling alley, so I missed the end of the game. So I don't know the play that this occurred on. But,
something tells me it had something to do with the announcer. The guy calling the game. Maybe Brendan
Glasheen was not on this game. This was a national ABC stage.
Good.
But if there was any way to tie this all in and blame Glasheen, this would have been done hours ago.
All right, couple Game 7s today. What do you got?
All right, from WNBA stat corrections to Game 7s to go to the conference finals. I think Pacers-Knicks is probably, well, both are really interesting storylines. I think the injury report for Pacers and Knicks is a pretty interesting storyline because we have a Game 7 here where the Knicks are dinged up beyond belief. Josh Hart would not be playing any other day. On a Friday night, he hurts his abdomen. Now you got a Sunday afternoon turnaround here. Couldn't finish that game. Had tape on his abs, towel over his head, going back and forth from the locker room. He's questionable. The OG Anunoby is tagged as questionable. We haven't seen him since he pulled his hamstring in Game 2. There's no way he would be coming back this early if it weren't these circumstances, and the Knicks felt like they couldn't have Josh Hart on the floor for 48 minutes as they usually do. So I'm curious to see what they do here. Are they going to break down? Is OG going to come back and kind of spell Josh Hart because they know Josh Hart can't play 48 minutes and OG comes in and just gives them what he can for 20 minutes? What is Josh Hart going to look like when he is out there? When he went down in that game on Friday night, I immediately went to his live in-game point prop under, which was 11.5. Within 30 seconds, it was 10.5. Within 30 more seconds, it was 9.5. 30 more seconds, off the board, didn't come back. He finished the game with 5 points. He clearly wasn't looking to shoot. So I think the Knicks' injuries make up the biggest question mark of the day. I like the Knicks in the game if I feel like they have enough out there, but I can't make that decision yet until I see who's in, who's out, what are limitations going to be. I do think with all the injuries, a guy like Miles McBride, Deuce McBride, 13.5 points, probably a good guy to step up. He's hit that 3 games in a row. And now with Hart dinged up too, I think he's going to have a good chance to get there. But I would also look to the under in the game just because I think this is going to tighten up. Dudes are running out of steam. They're injured. And these teams have just seen each other 7 times in a row now. It makes it more predictable. So I think this game's going to tighten up. Same with the Wolves game, but I like Denver there. We'll talk about it more later in the show.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, we got a nice NBA segment coming up, and we'll react to the Mavs knocking out the top seed in the West last night as well. Steve, what are you warming up to today, big man?
Well, it is Sunday, May 19th.
Yeah, very true.
Some
Hot
may
start.
say that Julian said it this morning when we were having our breakfast.
Donuts.
Julian said it's Alek Manoah Day.
Yeah.
And I said it is.
It's literally the first thing he said
It
when
was.
he came in.
It was. And I said, well, he was actually kind of good in his last start. Then I kind of dove into it a little bit. I said,
And I said that means he's going to be bad today.
right. And I
Don't
said,
forget
you know
that
what?
part of the story.
You know what? I think it is an Alek Manoah Day. Somehow the Twins let him off without allowing an earned run in that start. Alek Manoah went 7 innings in that game, gave up 3 runs, all of them unearned. And you know what happened to the Twins since then?
What?
They haven't recovered from the embarrassment that happened that they let Alek Manoah pitch well against them. Since that game against Alek Manoah, they have lost 5 in a row. They're averaging 1.4 points, 1.4 runs per game. I have basketball in my mind for whatever reason. So you know what? The Rays are going to come out here today and put Manoah back where he belongs. And that's back on the bench after maybe 4 innings of work. Alek Manoah over 2.5 earned runs today. I was going through this, and I went back to dating to last season. Manoah's control, and we're going to talk about this later in the MLB segment, Manoah's control has been putrid. And we'll talk about the walks in the next segment here. But when he puts runners on base, opposing hitters are hitting 276 against him with a 373 on-base percentage and a 516 slugging percentage with 13 home runs. When runners are on base, Manoah has a 10.3 ERA since dating back to last season. That is absolutely absurd that you can be that bad when runners are on base. The Rays, and again, we're going to talk about this, get on base at a much higher clip than the Twins do. Twins are somebody who is very, highly favored to win the division. That's looking like it's not going to happen at all. The Royals are going to do that, by the way, Julian. Would love for the Royals to do that. But I think this is where we see the real Alek Manoah from last year and his first start of the year against the Nationals versus what we saw when he faced the Twins in his last time out. The Twins have not recovered. They're still embarrassed. They're still ashamed. Now they can't even score a run in these games they're playing. They've been shut out twice in their last 5 games. So give me Alek Manoah to go over 2.5 earned runs.
What's the price on his over 2.5 earned runs?
Plus 115.
Plus money. Okay.
Yep, plus
Because I was
money.
going to say, if you go the other way to look at it, which is good and bad, you don't get plus money, but you get away from the earned runs, which he gave up 3 last
Sure.
game, none of them earned. First 5 team total is 1.5. It's minus 160 though.
Right.
You can get a first 7 innings team total on the Rays too. Over 2.5 minus 150.
Yep.
Okay.
Gotta lay juice either way though.
I got a good number for you.
Okay.
Plus 1110 here. I'm doing a bestie bet here for my warm-up. Justin Thomas, Jordan Spieth, both to finish top 10. The PGA Championship here. You already have Justin Thomas, who is T10 right now.
This is a
Spieth's-
parlay?
I was going to say, what can go wrong with a golf parlay?
Yeah. Nice little just 2-leg top 10 parlay here for these two guys who've known each other since they were 14. Spieth's 2 shots out of the top 10 right now. So both players are candidates here to make a surge up the leaderboard. Thomas playing in his hometown of Louisville. Both have had 3 rounds in the 60s up to this point. Both have been very inconsistent, really, over the last 12 months here. So a victory is obviously unlikely. I got a Sahith Theegala future right now. So he's 1 or 2 shots off the lead. So we really need him to win today again so I can actually afford to buy ketchup for my family. But both Thomas, Spieth, top 10 finishes, well within reach, okay? But we got to wrap up our warm-up here with what went down in the sweaty stakes yesterday, guys. So we had Steve's Boston Red Sox money line and then the St. Louis team total under 3.5. Both of those losing, right? And then Jules's, so that's a wash. Jules under 209.5 game total for OKC Dallas. Nope. But Chet going over 14.5 points. I believe he ended up with 21, which is why Jules, shockingly a man of his
Not
word,
shocking.
came in this morning with donuts, and we have been feasting all morning long. Producer Drew hit
I pay my debts.
10 Preakness bets yesterday. I said, okay, when we do a Belmont preview here in 3 weeks, Producer Drew has to be on this desk and part of that segment.
You didn't share the picks.
He said you have to ask. He said you have to look at the research. You have to look at
Can't do it without his sheets.
Listen,
He needs
yes,
his sheets.
he has his sheets, just like you never know what's coming up in the show because you never look at the rundown.
Yeah, it surprised me. Keeps me on my toes. More
I mean,
fun
that is,
way.
and that does give like a more genuine reaction if he doesn't know what's coming up on the show.
Anyway, nice 1-3 record by us and Drew's Electronic Ponies yesterday.
Right.
Not a good day.
Yeah,
we did
Producer
really well.
Drew.
We did really well. Kentucky Derby went 4-0.
But he's very good information for horse racing and
He is, and so is his wife Kendra, who loves to bet exact score on NBA quarters.
Does she play Keno too?
Yeah.
I
They
do
both
like
have
Keno.
Keno problems.
I do like Keno.
All right, folks, we got to reward our 11 minutes of work with a 3-minute break here. And Steve, you've already heard it, apparently leaning on Alec Manoa to reward his betting card. Let's get to the bottom of it when we step inside the bettor's box next.
Do you have a seat?
All right, back here on the Sweat, everybody, where it is time to step inside the bettor's box here with Steve Buchanan. Going to dish out some of his best bets for this Sunday, May the 19th slate. Thanks for coming back. Looks like we're starting with the Mets here. The Mets who, shockingly got off to that 12-8 start the end of April,
right,
which ended weeks ago. And now all of a sudden, this team is just stacking up games below the 500 mark. So they were never projected to be a contender in 2024.
No, and I think like that was, you know, and we'll talk about this later in the show, but like kind of like the Red Sox, like they were never expected to be a good team. They got off to a decent start, and it's like, oh, actually, maybe this team isn't so bad. And it's like, well, this team actually is kind of bad.
The problem with teams who do that is they give the fans false hope.
I would say if you're a Mets fan, I don't think there was ever any hope.
Well, there's been a lot of false hope within the Red Sox circles, that's for sure. But what do you like here with the Mets?
So even though I just crapped all over the Mets, I do like them to win by at least 2 runs today on the run line.
Okay, man.
But they're going against the Miami Marlins. And the Miami Marlins, to their credit, have actually won 4 in a row.
Really?
Which is kind of unheard of.
Marlins are the only team behind the Mets in that division.
Right. And I think the Marlins win total, longest win streak of the season was set at 5.5. So we're kind of knocking on the door right now, but it's going to end today because the Marlins cannot hit left-handed pitching at all. And they're going to be going up against Sean Manaea, who's been one of the lone bright starts for the Mets so far this season. But you look at the Marlins numbers against lefties, 257 WOBA, that's the worst in the league. 64 WRC+, that's the worst in the league. And then a 21% K rate, which is about league average, but not really too worried about that. Manaea has been great. You look at some of his starts there, he's allowed no more than 1 run in 5 of the 9 starts that he's made so far on the season. On the other side of the ball, we have Sixto Sanchez, who's taken the mound for Miami. I've talked about him before on the show. This was one of not only the top prospects in the Marlins system, but he was one of the top prospects in Major League Baseball. But injuries have just absolutely derailed his seasons for the past couple of years. They've kind of worked his way back. He was starting in the bullpen. Now he's in the rotation here. Mainly throws a changeup and a fastball. Those are his 2 main pitches, and those are 2 pitches that the Mets have done very well against by right-handed pitching. 332 WOBA against the changeup, 333 against the fastball. Marlins are also one of the worst teams in the league on the run line, and they're usually underdogs. They're still 17-31 on the run line so far this season. So getting the Mets at plus 120 on the run line here, I like that play a lot. Mets to win this game by at least 2 runs.
Yeah, Marlins looking to sweep this series. They put up 8 runs in their first game. Marlins in 10 runs yesterday, and
stops today.
Yep, stops
Lefty
today.
on the mound.
All right, for sure. So let's go now to Milwaukee and Houston. You like over 9 runs here. When you look at Milwaukee, I mean, Christian Yelich is back. William Contreras is playing at his all-star level. And finally, you have Rhys Hoskins is providing that added pop the Brewers were previously lacking further down in the batting order here. So what's the bat?
Yeah, I mean, Hoskins has been a really nice addition here coming off, I think it was Achilles injury from last year, obviously with the Phillies. Very low cost deal for him, and he's been a really big part of this Milwaukee offense so far. But we have a very average pitching matchup going today. We got Colin Ray going for the Brewers, and then Spencer Arrighetti going for the Houston Astros. Ray has a 3.45 ERA, which looks fantastic, but his expected ERA is at 5.45. So we're talking about a 2-run difference from his ERA and his expected ERA. So there is going to be some extreme regression coming Ray's way at some point. And with the way the Houston Astros bats have been swinging all of a sudden, I mean, don't look now. They're third in that division all of a sudden.
Yeah.
I was
going to say, I know Houston handled its business against the A's and the Tigers, but is that more of a sign of an Astros turnaround or an indictment on those teams?
I want to say it's probably more of an indictment on those teams, because if you look at the Astros numbers too, if you look at their numbers at teams above 500, they're 11-23 against teams above 500. Okay. So that's, I think, the real story here. But at least for today, like this game to go over. We got Arrighetti with a 7.52 ERA, expected ERA of 5.24. Lefties, when we talk about Colin Ray, that has been the big problem for him. 362 WOBA against him. All 6 home runs that he's allowed and 15 of the 17 earned runs that he's allowed on the year have all come off of bats of lefties here. So this might be a good spot to target some props for maybe Kyle Tucker, who's been one of their best hitters all season long. Arrighetti on both sides of the plate. They're hitting him hard. Milwaukee has also been one of the best teams at the over on the game total. 28-18 on the year for hitting the over on the game total. So give me the over between Brewers and Astros here this afternoon.
Okay, why are the Yankees landing on your card here? We have the second best record, 26-15 since April 1st here, and it's thanks to really their well-rounded production from the pitching staff to Juan Soto, to Aaron Judge, MVP caliber production out of both those guys. Yeah,
they're going for their 7th win in a row here today if they can get that against the White Sox here. And they're going up against someone who's very beatable, and that's in Chris Flexen, who's making his 8th start of the season here. Throws a couple versions of the fastball. He throws a regular 4-seam fastball, and he throws a cutter. Yankees have been destroying those pitches. 381 WOBA against the four-seam fastball, 442 WOBA against the cutter, against those pitches respectively here. Yankees offense, like you kind of mentioned here, has just been absolutely rolling through this winning streak here. Over the last 6 games, averaging 5.6 runs per game. They've gone over 4.5 runs in 4 of the last 6 games that they played. So going up against Chris Flexen, who is not a strikeout guy by any means. He completely relies on contact to get outs, and that's not going to be something you're going to be looking to do against this Yankees offense here because of how good that they've been. I think this is a fantastic spot for the Yankees here overall. That bullpen has actually been fairly good, the White Sox bullpen, which is not something that we'd expect, but they are getting really by the skin of their teeth because despite not giving up a lot of runs from their bullpen, they're averaging over 6 walks per 9 inning over the past week. That is just playing with fire, and no better team to have that come to fruition than the Yankees offense here, so I think they go over 4.5 runs here this afternoon.
All right, now to the moment we've all been waiting for since the top of the show, Alek Manoah.
Yep.
Why is he here on your card?
Well, we already talked about going over 2.5 runs. Now we're going to talk about him going over his walks total as well. He's at 2.5 walks for today. That's at plus money to go over that here. We've only seen 2 starts for him so far, one against the Nationals, one against the Twins. He's issued 5 walks in those 2 games. But if you pull his stats back and include from last year, he is averaging 6 walks per 9 innings at this point. His command has been absolutely atrocious. And I know he only walked 1 hitter in that last game against the Twins, but the Twins are also one of the least patient teams in the league. They have one of the worst, or I should say lowest walk rates in the league. Now we have the Rays, who are a much more patient team. And they are a team that has 4 guys in that lineup coming today against right-handed pitching with over double-digit walk rates against right-handed pitching here. So I think this is a really good spot here to back Manoah to go over 2.5 walks here. If you look at his numbers so far for this season, he has faced 50 total batters on the year. He has started behind in the count 24 times already. So almost half of the batters that he's faced, he started behind in the count. So Manoah to go over 2.5 walks. Kind of a big number here, but I like the plus money. The Rays walk a lot, so give me over 2.5 walks here against Manoah.
It's like the road back to a permanent rotation spot is far from over, but I feel like he has something to build off of now, and he sounded like his old self after the game as well.
No, I mean, again, like, he came out of that without giving up an earned run. Like, that has been something that he's really struggled with. Like, one of his first rehab starts, I think, was in single A. And they touched him for 6 runs in single A. Like, that's ridiculous to think that this was a guy who was one of the leading Cy Young candidates a year before, and then he's getting torched in single A baseball. So I'm sure he's more than ecstatic to be building off anything at this point, but I think he's going to have a tough time here with the Tampa Bay Rays.
All right, now we're talking Josh Naylor, who I absolutely love this guy. He's a great dude. I knew like a couple weeks ago he was surprising a hospice patient like at a game.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't hear that.
Like the guy hit a home run in that contest without even stepping into the batter's box. I love this dude. Why do you like him today?
Yeah, I like him to go over 1.5 bases here. He's going up against the Twins. We were talking about the other Twins and Chris Paddock. But Chris Paddock has been someone who's really worked his way back from injury. And this is somebody who we thought was going to be out of the league a couple of years ago. Made his way back. Has been pitching, average at this point. But I mean, again, someone who we thought was done in the league is now in that rotation there for the Twins. But the unfortunate thing for him is that Josh Naylor is absolutely crushing fastballs against righty. And that is a primary pitch thrown by Chris Paddock, who has done that 42% of the time that he's taken the mound so far this season. Against the fastball this year, Josh Naylor has 5 doubles, 7 home runs through 87 at-bats with a .563 slugging percentage. Paddock has a .370 WOBA against lefties, so this just feels like a really uneven matchup here in favor of Naylor. So him going over 1.5 bases, I believe it was -105. Okay, it's already off the board. I think it was -105 this morning here, but with the way that Naylor has been hitting, he's just been phenomenal, and a huge part of the reason why the Guardians have been doing so well offensively this year. He's been a huge part of that, giving him to go over 1.5 bases here today.
Okay, and just talk to me Juan Soto real quick, who blasted 2 home runs yesterday, went a total of 854 feet.
Yeah, I mean, he's just been unbelievable for this Yankees offense here.
And what's possibly his only season in pinstripes.
If they let him go, I mean, like, you have him in the room. Like, you need to re-sign him here. But I know we're up against it here. But Juan Soto go over 1.5 bases here against Chris Flexen. Like I mentioned, pure contact, doesn't strike out guys, really struggles against lefties. good spot here for Soto to go over 1.5 bases.
Another dude who was pretty good at hitting home runs back in the day, David Ortiz. He's inside our DK studio here. Tons to hit on, including his Red Sox, who can't hit. We're pulling the good stuff out of Big Papi next. All right, you're watching The Sweat, everybody. This show airs from 8 to 10 Eastern Time on DK Network every Saturday and Sunday morning,
Correct.
Steve. You know what airs at this time Monday through Friday?
I bet it's Gojo and Golic.
It is Gojo and Golic. They're not as good as we are. That show is not as good as this show.
Wow.
But they welcomed in Red Sox legend David Ortiz this past week on Friday, to be exact. So in case you missed it, and I know you did because you were grinding, you were working, you were doing stuff. Here's a chunk.
I was watching the Karen Reed case.
Yeah, we know. Here's a chunk of that David Ortiz conversation.
All right, fun one here. Very excited to welcome in Hall of Famer, World Series champion, all-around Red Sox legend, David Ortiz, kind enough to join us here on the show. And Big Papi, you are out back in Boston at our headquarters at DraftKings. I have to imagine that feels nice. I saw you were in upstate New York at the New York State Senate getting honored. So getting away from all those Yankees fans and back to the loving arms of Boston has to feel pretty good.
Yeah, I feel more safe down here. No, but really, yesterday.
What was it like being around all those Yankees fans having to have to say nice things? I know you were honored in the Senate there for obviously your career, all your great philanthropic work, but it had to be kind of nice to see all those Yankees fans have to say nice stuff about you for a little while.
I tell you what, man, it was pretty cool. It was an honor, to be out there. All of them, they made me feel like I was at home. They were very honest with me, hey, you did your thing, but we respect you, we love you, and it was pretty cool, man. I feel very thankful, when people recognize how hard you have worked and what it takes to put good things together, and nothing, just excited to continue, working with my foundation and continue doing good things.
My son and I were football players, and over the last couple of weeks, there's been a lot of talk. Some NBA players were talking and NFL players about could NBA players play in the NFL? Could NFL players play in the NBA? Growing up in the Dominican Republic, obviously you played baseball, but you're also a basketball standout. So going way back to those teen years, did you ever think maybe it would be a different sport that you would be able to follow?
I think, yeah, man. I mean, sport in general, there's always some sacrifices that you got to do to be able to accomplish, especially when you are trying to make the professional jump, because when you play a sport in the amateur level, you try to be good, but the professional type of level is a different thing.
So what you're saying is none of those football and basketball players would be able to hit a curveball, right?
Oh, hell no. No chance. I used to bring some really tough guys into the baseball field to hit batting practice. And 10 minutes later, they would tell me, Papi, I don't want no part of this. I'm telling you, I mean, baseball is a tough sport. Like the hands and eye coordination goes beyond anything for you to accomplish that.
Without question. And it's something, obviously, you've been doing all your life. You signed with, Seattle, just after your 17th birthday. So you've been doing this all your life, seeing the game grow as you have. You were done with the game in 2016. I'm wondering, because in all other sports we see changes, we know of the technical changes in baseball with the pitch clock and all that, but how much of a difference do you see in the game, if any at all, from when you got out to how the game is played now?
I tell you what, I wasn't all in with all the changes at the beginning. I was still playing when all this began. But now, when you look back and just think about a 4-hour game compared to a 2.5 or 2-hour game, it's a big difference. And I think those changes had apply in a good type of way. Into the game, and now that I work on TV and I sit down to watch the game and this and that, it's not, how can I explain that to you? Like, I have issues with the way, the players are developing nowadays, but I don't have issues with the clock. I mean, the clock is doing wonderful because sometimes I sit down to watch a 2-hour game. And because of the result and what I'm seeing, sometimes I get bored. Think about watching it for 4 hours. It's got to be, in a whole different dimension. But I think the changes are going in a good direction when it comes down to the timing.
What is your issue with the way players are developing right now that you mentioned?
Everybody's hitting 150. What's going on? when you sit down and watch everybody 150, 200, 150, 200, you be like, okay, are the pitcher throwing invisible ball? What had changed? You know what I'm saying? What had changed? I mean, you had the thing, very few guys, even the good players are struggling nowadays. And I keep on asking, what is going on? I mean, they brought this thing into the game about, swinging under the ball and this and that a couple of years ago. And I say, this is going to change some things when it comes down to run producing. And they call me dinosaur, they call me this, they call me that, but the guy that call you dinosaur, they never play the game. So they only have a clue about the numbers, not about the result. So we'll see how long that goes. But I think what makes the game fun is the diversity, when you have guys at this level doing what people expect them to do. But when you have everybody struggling, it's questionable.
Poppy, we know your time is precious, and we got to let you go here in a second, but in the last minute or so we've got you. You mentioned people close to it. Red Sox right now just over 500, middle of the pack in the AL East. How do you feel about the current direction of the franchise that you've called home and loved for so long?
We got this town used to the winning thing, but every organization go through a process where you have to use your farm like everybody else. Sometimes people focus on how much money you can pay out there. Sometimes teams are in a situation where they are not allowed to extend their payroll for any type of situation. They sometimes have to still pay to some of the players. Sometimes they trade players and they still have to take care of their salary, this and that. There's a lot going on when it comes down to it. The Red Sox right now are trying to involve the farm more than anything else because we have really good talent in the farm. And those guys need 2-3 years to develop, need 2-3 years to learn the process, need 2-3 years to get comfortable. You know what I'm saying? The Houston Astros went through it. They have become to be a dynasty. What else? I mean, there's a lot of organization preparing for that. Look at the Baltimore Orioles right now. I mean, everybody's from the farm, when you look at the Baltimore Orioles. So organization are diving into it more likely, at the exception of the Dodgers. I mean, the Dodgers have so much money, they can do whatever they want as of right now, but not everybody's in the same category. So I will say this. I will say the Red Sox, it's going to take us a few years, to jump in that wagon, but at some point, I think we're quietly going to be there.
So again, that was Big Poppy on Gojo and Golic on Friday, talking the state of the Red Sox. And speaking of the Red Sox, these two handsome gentlemen on the desk right here host a Red Sox podcast for DraftKings. Since 1901, a Boston baseball podcast. We did not come up with that name. It's a unique format of podcasting that we're doing. We drop it on Thursdays and Sundays, so we'll record it right after the show here. And you can get it wherever you get your favorite podcasts, like the Since 1901 a Boston Baseball podcast. 10 minutes. We do 10 minutes, Thursday, Friday. We get after it. We get to it.
What days do we do it?
What's up?
What days do we do it?
We do it on Thursdays and Sundays. Did I say the wrong days?
You said Thursday, Friday.
Oh, well, we should do it every day. Yeah, that's right. Make us work. No, but we just do it on Thursdays and Sundays right now. 10 minutes, really easy. So while you're doing whatever you can do for 10 minutes, you can listen to us. But right now, the current direction of the team, it does look like they're kind of falling back to earth a little bit, Steve, because I believe they've lost 4 out of their last 5 games or 5 of the last 6, something like that.
3 and 7 over the last 10. That's a good way to put it.
And you mentioned it on the show, on our podcast on Thursday, and we kind of mentioned it yesterday on The Sweat. One of the biggest issues with the Red Sox is they're not good at home. And they're playing the Cardinals right now, who are even worse at home.
Right.
And so the Red Sox, where they've been thriving on the road, what's their biggest problem right now?
Well, I mean, and it's really kind of out of their control, but the injuries continue to mount. They just had word the other day that Garrett Whitlock, who's been one of their better starting pitchers, had elbow soreness, was taken out of his rehab assignment, and now it's kind of indefinite when he's going to come back. And obviously, elbow soreness has been a major issue issue
Yeah.
for just pitchers across the league. Like we keep hearing that injury pop up there, and they just haven't simply been good about against teams above 500. 8-18 against teams above 500. That's going to get a lot worse over the next couple of months or so. They're going to see a lot of teams that are above 500 here. So it's a team that was never expected to do good. They started off better than expectations, and now I think the landslide's kind of coming in.
Yeah, that's right. It's only
So we should talk about it twice a week.
It's only going to get more difficult from here because I got the Brewers and then the Orioles, and Godspeed to them. It all comes down to this, folks. The English Premier League title will be on the line for two clubs today, Manchester City and Arsenal. Let's get the unbiased opinion of Arsenal fan Chinmay Vaidya next.
Oh, my God.
Watch Coach Goals every weekday, 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern, DraftKings Network. The Sweat will be right back.
is life. And let me tell you something. The Premier League title race between Manchester City and Arsenal coming down to the final game of the season. Odds on the DK Sportsbook are intriguing as to what will happen and who will win it all. Let's get after it with football fan Chinmay Vaidya of DK Network. Good to see you, friend. 2 points separating these two. Let's start with the team that has to win. Arsenal, your Arsenal team. First time this century, the Gunners are in the Premier League title race heading into the final day. How much hope do you have here, sir, for your squad, and what's the bet? Come on.
It's never over until it's over, but this is an uphill battle for Arsenal, unfortunately. They have been surprisingly having a tough time with Everton, who they will play in this final match day. 3-3 against Everton since 2020. It is a home game for Arsenal, and there's motivation there with the possibility of winning the title. I would not at all be surprised if Arsenal, with the opportunity to put pressure on Man City, because there will be some scoreboard watching with all these matches going on at the same time, I would not at all be surprised if Arsenal were to draw with Everton here and just completely squander any chance at the title. But if I were to make a bet, I will go with Arsenal on the money line. It's not great odds, but I do think they get the job done at home to give their fans something, even if it's not a Premier League title at the end of this match.
I'm worried for you because this is the first time we've talked in a while that you are not wearing your Sunday Arsenal red, though, Chinmay. Is everything okay?
Everything's good. I paid off a few bets for Arsenal with them, winning the title and winning the title without Manchester City. So there is some money coming back here, even if they don't win the title. It's been a rough close to the season, given the Champions League results and some of the Premier League games. But overall, I've been very happy with Arsenal's rise back after some really down seasons late in the 2010s and early 2020s.
Well, you've already mentioned there's going to be some scoreboard watching because, both games start 11 o'clock Eastern time later today. As for City, they've been on this tear, Chinmay. We were talking before we came on here. They're unbeaten since December and have won their last 8 Premier League games here. So how are you approaching this one from a betting perspective?
Yeah, Manchester City had a couple draws against Liverpool and Arsenal, who they were fighting for the title at that point early in March, I believe, and have just been on a tear since. And, Liverpool have fallen off a bit. Arsenal have had a few down results, and all of a sudden City back in the front of this title race. Manchester City have had some ridiculous final games at home. You obviously have Sergio Aguero scoring on effectively the last kick of the game in stoppage time. That was way back in 2012, 2013, I believe, to give Manchester City the title. You have a few years ago, Gundogan and Rodri scoring 3 goals in the final 20 minutes or so against Aston Villa. They were down 2-0. They came back to win 3-2 in that one to win the title. I don't think West Ham will give them quite as much of a challenge as Villa did a few years ago. So I'll give Man City the victory here and yet another Premier League title for Pep Guardiola.
Oh, man. All right. I know that had to sting a little bit, but it's okay. You're an honest man, and which is why I want to go from the top of the table here to the bottom of the table. The greatest invention by the Brits, by far, like maybe outside of tea, relegation. Okay, so you got 2 teams here duking it out to avoid relegations. I need you to tell me which team does the latest scenario favor here. I need you to break it down for us. There's already 2 that are going down, and 1 more will join them. Which one is it going to be?
Well, unless Luton Town outscores Nottingham Forest by 13 goals to make up the goal differential, Luton Town will be going down. So there won't be any shocks when it comes to relegation. And it is actually a bit unfortunate because a lot of these clubs that are just fighting to stay up in the Premier League and kind of maintain their revenue stream and maintain their standing in the English football structure, you can get some late winners and some insane reactions from home crowds. So it is a bit unfortunate that we won't get that, but I don't think Nottingham Forest are going to go down. I think it'll be Luton Town unless they pull off one of the absolute stunners in soccer history.
Again, I love the relegation aspect, like in this league and what they do across the pond. Which U.S. team needs to be relegated here, Okay, let's bring it over to America, Chinmay. So you could go with the Pistons, who have sucked in the NBA. Maybe you send them to the G League here, Chinmay. Maybe the Marlins down to AAA. All right, Carolina Panthers to the UFL. How about the Sharks to the AHL? What do you think, man?
Unfortunately, the owners would never vote for relegation, and
I know.
the playoff system that we have.
But I'm asking you. I'm asking you. Come on. You need to tell me.
Personally, the process 76ers had a case to be sent down to the G League. The Pistons made a very good case this past season. A team that you did not mention there, the Chicago White Sox.
Yeah.
They're effectively already a minor league team, so they've kind of self-relegated this season. The Marlins are there as well. I think baseball probably has the best case of a team being relegated just because there are so many players and so many minor league systems. That would be the sport where I think relegation does have a little more steam than some of these other sports.
Yeah, I think right now the only league over here that has the relegation thing is LIV. You know, we can't get into that too much right now, but LIV just introduced that like this year. Let's get back to the EPL real quick. Rest of the slate full of storylines. What's your favorite bet here, Chinmay?
As sort of a joke, I would play Sheffield United and Chelsea as a moneyline parlay just for Tottenham to lose their Europa League spot that they have on goal differential. But if you want a really easy bet, I think Liverpool to win over Wolves at home, Jurgen Klopp's final game as manager of Liverpool. I think there's potential changes for the Reds in their squad as well in the transfer window this summer. This is kind of like their final send-off, and while it won't be there won't be any titles on the line, I think Wolves will kind of just lay down and give Liverpool their moment.
Yeah.
So I would take Liverpool big. You can probably go on the spread for that one to get better odds.
So it just overall, is this a tough day to bet with like only a few teams, like with standings on the line here? Is there anything that you would recommend to people before they attack this slate on the DK Sportsbook? Any advice?
I think, you kind of just look for storylines, and really the only teams who have something to fight for. Like Chelsea definitely would be a team to look at. Tottenham as well. Unfortunately, Sheffield United aren't very good, so you could probably take Tottenham logically to win that one. We'll go over goal scorer props as well, but Mo Salah to score anytime is probably a good bet. It could be his final game for Liverpool as well. Phil Foden has been really hot for Manchester City, -125 as an anytime goal scorer. So I would look for some of these narratives instead of just sticking with teams, because last game of the season, a lot of these teams don't have a lot to play for. There could be some experimentation with the squad, different tactics. It's hard to tell.
All right, so the goal scorers that you just mentioned, were those the main goal scorer props that you are targeting today, or did you have anything else?
Yeah, I think Mo Salah's -180, not a ton of value there, but I think he's pretty much bound to get one. Could be his final game at Liverpool at Anfield, so I like him there. And Phil Foden has been really hot. Scored 8 goals in his last 10 matches, Man City playing for a title, and the odds on Haaland are just so out there that I think Foden at -125 is a much better play.
And so obviously the EPL is cooling down here, Chinmay. The MLS, though, is still heating up. And big news out of LA, we have Oliver Giroud out of France. So he's signing with LAFC. How big of a deal is this? Can you put this in perspective for us?
Yeah, I mean, we talked last time about LAFC potentially struggling at the beginning of the season, and I mentioned LAFC as a possible title contender, and my pick to win the MLS Cup, if you're looking at value on the odds, that would be the play. Look, Giroud is a proven striker. He leads France in international goals scored. He's been in plenty of big matches. So from that perspective, he definitely helps LAFC. However, if you look at LAFC's stats, they have scored 24 goals so far in MLS. So scoring goals has not been the issue for them. They've allowed 19 goals, though. The issue has been on the defensive end. So we'll see if they can improve there. But Giroud, certainly proven talent, definitely elevates the profile of MLS. Not quite to the level of a guy like Messi or Luis Suarez, but definitely a proven guy who fans will know and helps their squad tremendously.
You'd rather bet LAFC right now over RSL in the West?
Yeah, I think so. Just given the way that the MLS Cup works and the playoff format, you don't have these series of games. It's just one game for after the first round. It's just one game elimination, and one bad game is enough to send you home, even if you've been great for the whole season. That's kind of what we see in this playoff system, as opposed to the other leagues where it's a full season thing. In MLS, it's just the playoffs, and you got to perform when the games matter the most.
All right, so just very quickly here then, Chime, we know Messi and Miami are dominating in the East. What's it going to take for like a New York or like a Cincinnati to come out of there?
I think Cincinnati probably has the best chance of taking down Inter Miami. When you go defense versus offense, it's easier to kind of win that way when you play to your strength. Offense versus offense, like New York, both New York teams are scoring a lot of goals, but are you really going to win an offensive battle when the other side has Messi and Suarez? I like a team like Cincinnati that is better defensively to have the best chance at stopping Inter Miami.
All right, big man. It was good seeing you, Chinmay. Thanks a lot for hanging out with us. Coming up next, we're going to poke over to the association. Jules sharing some of his best bets. Let's go. Let's get after it. Game 7, don't mind if I do. Kicking off the second and final hour of the Sweat here on the Sunday morning with Julian Edlow. I'm Emerson Latzia. Steve Buchanan is here. We still will have Jeff Ulrich joining us live to talk some NHL futures, as well as Kelly Bidlin of VSiN's going to join us, dive into some PGA Championship bets for what is going to be a thrilling final round. As for what we've covered so far, don't mind if I do. EPL title race, that's going to be decided today. Steve took us inside his beefy better's box.
Smooth.
Yeah, real smooth. You know who was smooth? David Ortiz, who was inside our DraftKings studio. What has been your favorite topic that we have covered so far in the first hour, Julian?
Why does it matter what my favorite topic
I was just asking because you haven't really been on the show a whole lot, and you've been able to sit off to the side and kind of just watch us work our magic. What has it been?
Steve's just laughing away in the corner that I was sitting at. I mean, my favorite part is probably Drew's recapping producer Drew's electronic ponies that always seem to get W's anytime they race. I know that makes him very proud and happy. So the next time that we have a major race, those horses will be back.
That's right.
Probably putting up a pretty good record again.
The Belmont, but he also mentioned during commercial break, the Belmont's going to be a little different because it's held
He's making excuses.
It's held at Saratoga Springs.
This run is inevitably going to come to an end.
Yeah.
And when it does, an excuse needs to be put in place.
Yeah, he's already planted the excuse card. What excuse, as we now break into NBA shoot-around, fun little segment here, dive into some best bets with Julian Edlow. Let's get after the Dallas Mavericks and what they did last night, because the Mavs here headed to their second Western Conference Finals, so primarily because of Luka. And he led his team back from a 17-point comeback, and I'll give you credit. You were texting producer Drew and I last night, and you said, all right, now I'm going to attack the Mavs when they are down. And you did that. And I take it you came out victorious?
I came out victorious with that. The Mavericks down 16 and a half. They were getting 9.5 points.
Damn.
I wish I went with a little bit of money line, but I already had some money line pre-game, pre-series, so I left it alone. But getting that 9.5 seemed a pretty good spot the way that Dallas has been playing those second half.
That's right. So they knocked off the Thunder in 6 games. They won 117 to 116 here. How were the Mavs able to send the Thunder packing here? Now, the Thunder were also this team that many people weren't buying into, think they can make this deep run. That's why that one guy cashed out his ticket for $80,000 this past week, because they're so young. Is that what ended up being the difference here, Jules?
Yeah, a little bit of experience definitely played a role. OKC is going to be a good team, and they're going to get better. SGA is already there, obviously, in the MVP conversation, probably on an annual basis moving forward. The other guys need to get a little bit more polished, and it's not their fault. Chet Holmgren played a good game last night, beat me to bring you guys some donuts by going over 14.5 points.
Thank you, Chet.
Big fan. Not quite enough. Jalen Williams, very good young player, but not quite there. Figuring out the rest of that rotation for OKC and how it's going to work. So very good team. I mean, they swept the Pelicans out of the first round, pushed a really talented Dallas team. But again, I don't think we're talking enough about how good Dallas is with these additions of PJ Washington, Daniel Gafford, Derek Lively coming to life, the combination of Luka and Kyrie really gelling. They're going to be dangerous for whoever wins this Game 7 in the West tonight.
That's right, because that is who they will face in the next round, either the Nuggets or the Timberwolves here, Jules. So Game 7, that's going to be the late game here. What's the big storyline in this one? I'm looking over at the Nuggets, and we talked about it pre-show a little bit. I think one thing to watch is going to be Jamal Murray's elbow here, because the guard talked about it after the last game, and that was the reason he says he shot 4 of 18 from the field.
I don't know. Jamal Murray, it's been an interesting postseason for him. Against the Lakers, he's like Mr. Clutch. He hits 2-game winners in one series. Then it comes to the Denver series, the Minnesota series. They go down 2-0. He doesn't look right. He's playing hurt. He gets really frustrated in Game 2. Probably should have been suspended a game for throwing stuff on the court.
Twice he threw stuff on the court.
One time, maybe you let it slide too. That should have been a suspension. That could be why the series is still going, honestly. Because Murray was awesome in that Game 3 that Denver got back into the series with. And then he plays really good in those games to bring them back. Now he's playing poorly again. Now it's an injury. So, like, what is it? Is he just having bad games or is he hurt? The elbow's a new injury. Before it was lower body stuff. So, what is he going to look like? That's the biggest variable in this game, the biggest question mark. I do tend to trust Denver at home. This has been a wild series.
Because remember, Minnesota coming out hungry like the Wolf last game, and also had those 2 big wins to start the series in Denver, so they know how to win on this court.
Yeah, we know Minnesota can win on the road here. Minnesota's coming off a dominant game, so can they carry some of that momentum? I'm going to be more of the thought that after getting embarrassed like that, Denver's going to come out pretty sharp. Anthony Edwards, I expect to look good. Don't mind his 27.5 point prop. But the other guys on the road, it's a lot like OKC with this young team. Minnesota maybe a little more veteran, particularly with a point guard like Mike Conley. But who's going to step up and help Anthony Edwards on the road?
Yeah.
If Minnesota's going to win this game, I don't think he's going to get quite enough help. And I think Denver's going to respond to the way that they just got absolutely beat in Game 6.
So you're taking Denver -5.
I haven't played the -5 yet. I've played a little bit of double result because I do think that Denver should win the first half. They're going to come out strong after that loss and then go on to win the game. So I'll be putting out some double results as a play later in the day on Twitter and find some other angles that I want to take on this game. Under has taken a ton of money. Under, I think it's at 198.5 right now. 17% of the bets for 35% of the handle so far.
Okay, so that's the 8 o'clock game, 8 o'clock Eastern time. This afternoon, though, we're going to have Pacers in the next second Game 7 on the slate day. It's going to be a hell of a day for sports here. So Indiana quite literally out-bullied the Knicks on Friday, and now all eyes, and you mentioned it at the top of the show during our Working Up a Sweat segment, all eyes will be in the injury report leading up to Sunday's game, the Knicks injury report here. So how are you navigating this right now in terms of betting?
Yeah, so Josh Hart is the first key piece. He gets hurt in that game on Friday night. He's got tape on his stomach, towel over his head, in and out of the locker room. He wouldn't be playing on a normal day. And it goes from a Friday night game. We talked about how much the rest benefited the Knicks Tuesday night going to Friday night, getting that rest.
And Hart has been New York's Iron Man. Like, up till Friday night, he was averaging nearly 43 minutes a game in the postseason, dude.
When he was off the floor, it was because of a blowout. So if it's a close game, Josh Hart plays 48 minutes. He was off the floor on Friday night. They had that extra rest leading up to that game. Now it's a quick turnaround. It's a Friday night to a Sunday afternoon game. Now it kind of hurts the Knicks. So are they going to be pressured to bring back OG Anunoby, who we have not seen since he hurt his hamstring in Game 2? He's clearly nowhere close to being ready to play if this were the regular season. They tag him as questionable as well as Hart. Maybe if Hart isn't 100% and can only go, 28 minutes, can OG come in and be the guy that fills those other 20 minutes? Yeah. Is he good enough? Is he healthy enough to do that at this point? I don't know. A lot of moving parts for the Knicks. If there's home court is held all series. If there's a spot where that breaks, like I could see Indiana just their depth being the reason they come in and get this win on the road.
It seems like that +3.5 looks a little tasty right now if the Knicks are at such a disadvantage with these injuries.
It wouldn't stun me at all if this is where the injuries and the lack of depth caught up to the Knicks and the Pacers came through. If the Knicks can get healthy minutes out of Hart and OG, I want to bet the Knicks. I like the Knicks at home in this spot. I just can't do it yet because let me see what the final injury report looks like, and we'll go from there. But I think we can tie it into props too. Like if Josh Hart's going to be limited at all, which I think he is, under 11.5 points feels pretty good. That's going to be a tough injury to score with. I'm sure it's pretty sore. We saw it play its role on Friday night. I bet him in game under 11.5 points. Within a minute, it was down to 9.5, and then off the board, he landed on 5 points. He's going to be a facilitator and a rebounder and a defender when he's out there.
Can I ask you a question?
That's literally your job.
How do you think the first quarter is going to play out? Specifically, correct score and the first quarter. This is one of producer Drew's go-tos here. He and his wife Kendra, they love betting the exact score of the first quarter. Now, again, they have a Keno problem, and it appears that they have a first quarter
Keno.
betting
We're just
problem
picking
as well.
numbers on a board.
So what are you doing? What score are we going with here, Jules?
All right.
Put your money where your mouth is.
Well, we got a 198, a 208 total. We are in the ballpark here.
Okay.
Scroll down a little bit. Let's look for more defense. There we go.
Oh.
More defense and bigger numbers. I can't believe you're making me do this, Drew.
This is incredible.
26 to 23 Knicks.
Yes.
110 to 1. If that hits,
Okay.
Drew's bringing in donuts all summer.
Oh, all summer?
And this is
Hell
not an
yeah.
official bet. You should not go out and actually put your money on this. Drew's just
We're having
making
a little bit.
me
I mean, you
pick
can
the
bet
first
it.
quarter.
It's there. Who matches up best with the Celtics, though?
There's two ways you can go about it. The Knicks are going to be a little more hard-nosed. Guys like Hart and Hartenstein and their energy on the glass and on defense would bother the Celtics. That would be an annoyance to them. But as these games goes on, as the series goes on, they don't have the bodies. The Celtics are going to run them out of the gym. So is the Pacers' depth. Does that make it tougher on the Celtics that they can at least run with them, stick with them, put fresh bodies in? But the talent isn't close. Either way, I think it's a gentleman's sweep. Okay. As the Celtics did in the first two rounds. And we talked about it on the show yesterday. Series prices are up on DraftKings, and series spreads are up on DraftKings. You can lay the 2.5 games with the Celtics, so you cash that ticket if it's Celtics in 4 or 5 in the East Finals. Laying the 2.5 games against the Knicks, -130, Pacers, -140. So the price is telling you that the Knicks would be the tougher opponent.
All right, Pacers plus 1,300 to win the East. Wow, interesting stuff right there. Jules, thanks for your help. You did a great job.
Thanks for asking the questions.
Hey, that's my job, as some like to say.
It is.
The Oilers, Jules, you'll love this. They were super oiled up last night. Edmonton, super fan Jeff Ulrich will join us next. They got Game 7 tomorrow night against Edmonton. The Canucks had the chance to eliminate Connor McDavid and the Oilers from the Stanley Cup playoffs last night in Game 6. But the Oilers, outshooting, outscoring, and outplaying them instead. Bring out the GIMP! DK Network's Jeff Ulrich, Edmonton superfan. Wow, dude, Edmonton dominating 5-1 in that victory. And now we're tied at 3 games apiece in the conference semifinal series, forcing a winner-takes-all Game 7, Rogers Arena tomorrow night. Listen, Jeff, yesterday on the show I said, hey, is this a must-win for Edmonton? You said, yeah, it is. But, Jeff, I was watching that game, and then there was the goal that was called off with less than a second to go in the first period for Edmonton, who could have been up 2-1 in the first intermission. Called off for interference. I said, wow, how are these dudes going to overcome this? They came out and potted goal after goal after goal. How impressed were your boys last night?
I got to be honest, I've been waiting for this performance.
Nice.
You know, I'm oiled back up. I'm well lubricated again. I mean, I think we're headed into Game 7. Headed into Game 7 with the right momentum. They needed to do this to Silovs, to the rookie goalie. They needed to just let them know that, like, look, man, you're going up against the Oilers, the best offense in the league. This is what we can do to you on any night. And you're waiting the entire series for an important performance like this. And you mentioned the called off goal. They also didn't score on a 5-on-3 right before the end of the second period. And it all didn't matter because they just came back. And like you said, they just kept scoring again. So that's the kind of dominant performance they needed. Vancouver's generating very little offense in this series. And if the Oilers just continue to get those chances, I think they get through. I think that they win Game 7 again. I don't think it's going to be easy. It never is on Game 7. Vancouver on home ice. But, you know, you look at the money line odds down to -142. They're -205 at home, -200 at home for Game 6. It's a pretty big discount we're getting off those odds just for home ice. I would definitely lean Oilers here. I mentioned right before Game 6, they got Connor McDavid. It's now just a 2-game series. You just need Connor McDavid to go nuts for 2 games. He's already gone nuts for 1. We just need 1 more. I'd take the Oilers.
All right, so right now, any other bets ahead of Game 7? Obviously, player props aren't out yet, but like game props, I'm looking here. You can get +275 if you think this thing's going to overtime. You know how tight teams play in a Game 7 in the NHL postseason here.
I would probably lean more towards taking the under for that reason. And again, like your thesis is correct. I mean, I think that, you know, it's not going to necessarily be like a 5-1 or like a 6-2 blowout. I mean, it could be. I mean, the Oilers are certainly capable of doing that again. But I would lean more to the under here. You look at this series, Vancouver is done pretty well at limiting the Oilers' chances outside of that last game. But even in that last game, it was still a limited number of shots on goal. But, you know, what we have seen is that Vancouver generates very little offense, like I already said. The last couple games, we did see 6 goals last game. The game before that was very tight, you know, kind of 3-2 Vancouver win. I would probably say as long as this number is under, set at 6 and kind of better than -130, I would lean towards the under. I'm not going to take an OT prop. It could happen, but I still think my favorite bet is just take the Oilers straight up here, potentially even on the puck line at +170. One thing we will see is if the Oilers are ahead late in this game, we'll see the Canucks pull the goalie very early. So puck line always a little bit more in play, and we're getting +170. We're not getting +110 or 120. +170 on the puck line for an elimination game where that empty net is going to be potentially there very early on. Yeah, I kind of like that as well.
So if it ends up being the Stars and the Oilers series odds right now, Stars would be -115 favorites there for that series, and Oilers -105. Stars much heavier favorites at -250 if they end up facing the Canucks. So we'll see what happens there for Game 7 tomorrow night. Also have the opening between the Rangers and Florida in the East here, Jeff. This is just the second time in NHL history the Rangers and Panthers are meeting in the postseason. So in terms of that series, Panthers are -150 favorites to win the series. Rangers at +130, which I don't know. That looks kind of tasty right now, does it not?
Yeah, I mean, look, we don't want to speak down to the Panthers too much here. I mean, the Panthers, I think, deserve to be favored in this series, despite the Rangers obviously having Shesterkin and looking pretty good, and obviously just cleared out the Hurricanes. But let's talk about the Panthers a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, they have been tough to kind of shut down completely in this playoffs. The Tampa Bay Lightning brought their best game in Game 4, barely won that game. The Hurricanes had to eke out a come from behind win to beat the Rangers. The Rangers it's like that team. They just keep popping up. They just keep respawning when you get them down. They've got the power play. They've got Shesterkin making big saves. Extremely hard team to get over on right now. So yeah, I mean, you look at these odds. I do think Florida should be favored, but I'm a little surprised the spread is still this big. -150 and +130 for the Rangers. It's just too tempting not to take the Rangers over 7 games. Again, you're asking the Panthers to do something, like I said a couple of days ago, to beat the Rangers 4 times, to beat Shesterkin 4 times, to shut down that power play 4 times. Even for the Panthers, who are very strong 5-on-5, they have a lot of depth. They do have the depth advantage in this series, in my opinion, although it's really close. But man, that is going to be tough for them. I definitely lean just due to the odds being this big of a kind of a spread between the two teams. I would have to lean the Rangers 100%.
Yeah, because the odds are not pointing to a quick series by any means. And really, I don't blame odds makers there, because you kind of touched on it already. Divisional top seeds, they have the scoring and defensive talents to put up a fight to create this back and forth series. Plus, we got 2 Conn Smythe contenders between the pipes here. Would you be brave enough right now to bet any kind of like series prediction odds here?
So I think that the safest way to go about it would be looking for the series handicap, going to series handicap, series spread, whatever you want to call it. I like this series to go 6 or more games. So, if I like that, the bet then is the New York Rangers +1.5 games, which just looking right now, you're actually getting -150 there to get that to go, obviously 7 games. +2.5 is -380. So not as good a price, but I think that the Rangers can extend this series a little bit. I like that idea. I like going for the longer series. And if you want to go exact games as well, I don't think that's like a horrible idea in this situation. Really think this has a good chance of going 6 or 7. You could just take both bets going, obviously, to go 6 games and to go 7 games. You would profit if you took both, but even just taking like the 7 games, I think in this circumstance, not the worst idea at all. So yeah, no specific way that you need to go about it. I think the series spread is the most straightforward, but you could certainly even look to New York to win this 4-3. It's +475. New York to win this 4-2. It's +650. A lot of bets like that are out there that I think have a lot of appeal. I think whoever wins, it'll probably be in 6 or 7 games. I expect we'll get a pretty tight back and forth series.
What should make you, as an Oilers fans or anyone out there who likes Vancouver, what should make you nervous about, or what does make you nervous about playing the Stars here next, who are just sitting at home, they're watching this thing, they got the second best cup odds on the DK Sportsbook right now, behind only the Panthers. Panthers +200, then the Stars at +205.
I mean, they're obviously they were the best team in the West, but I wouldn't say that either of these teams, Vancouver or Edmonton, should be super scared of the Stars. Yes, they're deep, pretty good offense. Obviously, they can carry the play for certainly periods of the time. They're very good at limiting chances. In a way, I think that they probably set up better to beat Vancouver, because whatever Vancouver does, Dallas just kind of does it better. They're just as good at limiting chances, but they have a lot more offense. They create offensive chances better. And quite frankly, they just have more stability in goal. I think that the Oilers set up better to take on a team like Dallas. We have seen the Oilers put up 5-6 goals against Dallas. They make this a bit of a back and forth shootout. That's going to be more of the Oilers game. So I really do think from a stylistic perspective, if it's Dallas versus Vancouver, I will probably take Dallas on some kind of series spread, like -1.5 games, potentially even -2.5 games. I really think they have the ability to potentially make that a shorter series versus Vancouver. Whereas with the Oilers, I think there's a really good chance we see 6 or 7 games again.
All right, we got about a minute to go in this segment. Any thoughts on Craig Berube being hired as the next head coach in Toronto, one of your Canadian compatriots there north of the border?
I mean, I don't have huge thoughts on it. I mean, obviously, getting another veteran head coach, not a big deal, or like, not surprising is what I'm trying to say from Toronto. I think that what you see in the NHL these days is just resurfacing coaches after resurfacing coaches. It's rare that you see a team take a chance and go with a less proven name. And Toronto, being the huge market it is, going with a guy like Berube, who's got a pretty good resume, it kind of makes sense. I mean, I really wish a team like Toronto would go and swing for the fences and maybe go with a name that isn't out there and just see what happens. But they weren't going to do it at this point. They don't want to be the management that kind of wasted a year of Austin Matthews' career on a bit of an experiment. But that's just where you are with the Leafs. They played safe again. Yeah. We'll see how it works out. Maybe this guy's the one who takes him there.
He's a hated man here in Boston. He was behind the bench when the Blues knocked him off like 4 or 5 years ago. Hang out, Jeff. Let's talk some PGA Championship. Kelly Bidlin's going to join us next. best golf tournament by far throughout this season has been what we have been witnessing at Valhalla at the PGA Championship here. So today, final round. It's there for the taking here, gentlemen. Jeff Ulrich at DK Network, Kelly Bidlin, one of our VSiN teammates, good friend of mine. Guys, 54 holes we have now behind us. This tournament, too, compared to all 4 other majors in the last 10 years, smallest margin of victory here. So it's always these tight finishes. I don't know who's going to break through. Just your reaction, Kelly, real quick, to what we witnessed yesterday out there in the 3rd round. And you also have the world #1 golfer who looked human. And then Shane Lowry's like, hey, I'm here. I'm going to go ahead and tie a major record shooting a 62.
Yeah, heck of a round yesterday. First of all, great to be on with you guys. Jeff, love your work. Awesome to be on with you.
God.
Emerson, I guess we go back a ways. So yeah, happy to do this with you. But great to see you, buddy. Great to see you. Awesome 3rd round. I mean, catching the Shane Lowry final stretch was awesome to watch. Just couldn't get home with the 61. And man, we roll into Sunday with a stacked leaderboard. Jeff, I have no idea who we're gonna see up winning this thing. Xander, we all know we got questions about. Colin Morikawa, he's looked good the past couple of tournaments, but the irons have been a little out of whack this year. I don't know that I've got full trust in him. It looks like a sexy leaderboard when you see all the names at the top, but man, I've got questions with all these guys' games right now.
Yeah, that's a good point with Colin, too, because he has been known, Jeff, as the best iron player in the world, but this year with his irons, I think it's ranking around like 50th or something like that in the world. So right now, what did you enjoy the most watching yesterday, Jeff?
I've enjoyed the least watching Colin Morikawa because that's the entire reason I didn't bet him this week.
You're a fool.
He's so far below his baseline in terms of his, how he usually hits his irons. It was just so hard to get behind him. And now he's putting like Jordan Spieth from 2015 this week. So who knows which Colin Morikawa is going to show up. Xander just looks like a robot out there right now.
Yeah.
He's just not sinking enough putts. It feels like he could even have a 3-shot lead or something. But I mean, it's the final round of a major. Who knows what he's going to do either, because he's never really been in this kind of exact spot where he's got such a good chance. He's been in final pairings before, but it's just kind of felt a little different. He is the extreme favorite right now. So interesting to see how he goes. But I mean, look, we just saw 62 yesterday.
Yeah.
You've got Bryson there at -13. It feels who ended his round with an eagle. Feels like he's got maybe something more to give us. You've got guys at -12. I don't know, like Dean Burmeister, who's been like racking up wins on LIV. Who knows what he's going to do today? McIntyre. There's a lot of wild cards just sitting right below Xander. So I think that the most likely scenario is Xander closes this out. He gets his major. He's looked good for parts of this year, but man, like Theegala, DeChambeau.
Yes, that's who we need, Jeff. That's who we need. Theegala today. Okay.
I've been so impressed with Theegala. He really looked like he was just done.
Yeah.
And you wrote him off, and then he goes 6 under in like 10 holes or something to get himself back in it. Really impressed with him. I definitely cheering for him just from a fan base. He's a great looking player, really good resilience, and it would be a great story if he won.
And the top 3 guys on the odds boards all had interesting comments yesterday too. Like Schauffele was like, I'm not really thinking about like the final result, and it's like, what do you mean? You're not thinking about like going like pedal to the floor and winning this thing. Colin Morikawa was like, I like when people root for me, but no one's rooting for me out here. And then Bryson's like, wow, after he made that eagle, he's like, I haven't felt something like that in ages. And it's like, yeah, because you're playing on LIV right now. But Bidlin, who right now towards the top of the odds board on DK Sportsbook would you be most confident betting today? Let's say if no one has placed an outright up to this point, if you're going to the board, who would you recommend them maybe look at?
Man, I'm kind of with Jeff on Xander here, where I think we're going to see a winner here come from that, from 13 under or better. Okay. I think that's probably the group realistically we're looking at, but as Jeff pointed out, we've seen guys go low here all week. So I've got even bigger questions about some of the guys down there at, 11 under, 10 under, that group. If you wanted a fun flyer, Jeff, you can call me crazy if you want, but you want to go Tony Finau like 150 to 1, something like that for a little fun sweat. See if he gets in the party on Sunday. I think that could be a fun bet here this afternoon. I do like top 10s, live top 10s on him and Justin Thomas. Both those guys I had different bets on coming into the tournament. I think right now, if you're looking at this leaderboard, I have a hard time finding guys that are going to surpass those guys and get into the top 10. While I do think there are a few names above them that could drop out. Justin, Emerson, you're talking about some of these guys speaking post round yesterday and other days. JT, you can feel how big this means to him. Was playing with Keegan yesterday, talking about playing back home in Louisville and riding all those emotions and really feeding off what the crowd was giving him. And man, I like some of the parts of this game coming in. And if Finau could just get the putter, keep it rolling here this last round, I think there's no reason why he should end up right there in the top 10.
Yeah, I like the JT call there. I said at the top of the show, let's do like a bestie kind of parlay here. I said Thomas, Jordan Spieth, both finishing top 10 plus 11-10 odds there. $10 will win you $110, people. Jeff, since picking a winner seems to be like so difficult because of how congested the top of the leaderboard is, take me to some props then, or maybe some other markets that we can focus on ahead of the final round.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I definitely like that JT call out. And him and Finau plus 115, plus 165 for a live top 10. I mean, I don't know if you want to bet both, but definitely taking one of those guys would probably give you a nice top 10 sweat, and I think probably offer a little bit of value. I even go further, just a live top 20 odds here. Looking at for a guy like Maverick McNeely at plus 500, he's kind of played pretty solid all season. He's a really good putter. Kind of a nice spot for him going into Sunday. He's played well in a major, potentially setting like a career best here if he gets in the top 20. I think plus 500 is pretty fair. I mean, for a guy who can get really hot with his putter and just carry you for a round, that's just another prop you may want to look at with a little bit more upside in terms of just what you're getting for a payout. But I think if you're looking at the matchups, I definitely just perusing them here. Couple names stick out. Corey Connors plus 110 over Tyrrell Hatton. I like that. Connors has been pretty solid ball striking. We're waiting for a decent putting round, but certainly a player who on Sunday could come through for us. Looking a little bit further down, Kurt Kitayama going up against Will Zalatoris at plus money. Kitayama is a really solid player. He's played pretty good all week. Again, just taking plus money over Zalatoris, who really has not looked on top of his game now for like 4 weeks since coming back.
I needed him top 20.
Injury.
I needed him top 20, and so did producer Drew.
I kind of like Kitayama in that matchup, regardless. So, yeah, couple matchups I was looking at. I think you're getting good odds on both those players.
Kelly, you were nodding your head in agreement.
That's the bet right there, E. That's the bet right there. I'm with Jeff all over that one. I bet that last night. Plus 115 on Kitayama over Zalatoris. Kitayama I have a top 40 on heading into this tournament. Did like him heading in. Neither guy's really been blown it up big time with the stats so far this tournament. But Zalatoris is just riding such a hot putter through this. Haven't really seen a lot of his other parts of his game really stick out here throughout this tournament. So I'm going back to Kitayama. I think you're getting him at plus money in a matchup over Zalatoris. That is I don't really end up playing a lot of fourth round matchups usually, but I loved that when I saw him at plus money over Zalatoris.
All right, guys, we got a couple minutes to go in this segment. I want to ask you, because Scottie Scheffler's 41 round par or better streak ended yesterday. What are some reasonable expectations for him today? You could get him to finish top 10 at plus 280. He's only 3 out of the top 10 right now. You feel like he's going to be a man on a mission. His regular caddy's going to be back on the bag. He had a chaplain on the bag yesterday. Kelly, what do you think? What do you expect out of him today?
Man, I think I would only be making Scottie Scheffler bets with your money, Emerson. This is, I think after everything he had to go through on Friday, we saw him struggle a bit yesterday, uncharacteristically. Just don't know where his head's at right now. And now that he's far enough back in the tournament, is he really going to try to press it to actually go out there and think he can win the thing? I don't really know. I mean, obviously he's the best golfer in the world. Nothing would surprise me with what he does today. But I was a little taken aback from what I saw yesterday. I think this has been a rough couple days for him. I think it is affecting him mentally, and I think we saw that spill over into his golf game yesterday a bit.
Jeff, what do you think? Would you touch him at all in terms of betting?
No, I mean, actually, if you want a matchup bet, I mean, Mark Hubbard is plus 350 versus Scotty Scheffler today.
Whoa.
I think that I think it's probably the best angle you can take on Scheffler. I'm not expecting him to shoot like over par again necessarily, but certainly like there's no motivation here. It's been a hellacious week. He's probably running out of gas, and quite frankly, probably just wants to get out of the state at this point.
I was going to say,
get to like a safe haven, go to international waters or something, where he can actually drive his car
go
down
on a
the
cruise.
That's
what he needs.
So I Mark Hubbard plus 350. Yeah, that's kind of interesting to me, to be honest.
Okay.
I think Hubbard is also a player, much like I mentioned with McNeely here. He's potentially going to set a career best. It's a big Sunday for Mark Hubbard. Scotty Scheffler's not a big Sunday. He just kind of wants to get out of Dodge.
Reports are this morning they are going to drop charges, so he won't have to show up to that court appearance on Tuesday. Yeah, he's never going to step foot back in Louisville, Kentucky ever again. Kelly, thank you. Jeff, we'll see you
guys.
We got the cool down coming up next.
Thanks.
All right, everybody, welcome back. Final block of Les Sweat on a Sunday morning, May 19th. Yeah, you didn't take French, did you?
No, I didn't.
Okay. Oui, dude.
You're so stupid.
Really showing your versatility.
Yeah.
Indeed I am, indubitably. All right, so we've covered a lot throughout this show, would you say?
I would say so.
Okay, so in terms of maybe what anybody missed out there, okay, what would you say? Someone tuning in right now, you'd say, wow, you've missed a lot. What is the first thing you would say?
I would say that we dished out a lot of good bets that you could take today, and specifically point to the Mets on the run line today going against the Miami Marlins. Love that bet a lot today.
Oh, man.
Sean Manaea going on the mound for the Mets, going up against one of the worst teams in the league against left-handed pitching. They just can't. They just turn into puddles on at the plate when they're facing left-handed pitching here. But Manaea's been great. 1 run or less in 5 of the 9 starts that he's made so far this year. Sixto Sanchez still kind of working his way back as a starter, which was something he was built up for, but injuries have really derailed him over the past 3 years or so. But yeah, the Mets are just hitting the pitches that he throws well. The Marlins are not hitting anything well when it comes out of the hand of a left-handed pitcher. I think it's a good spot to back the Mets. Plus
Jules.
114 on the run line.
Out of everything that
You all right?
Yeah, I'm fine. I'm totally fine.
Okay.
Out of everything that you have said in this show today, someone just turned this channel on, DK Network, which you can find on multiple streaming platforms or VSiN, and they say, wow, Julian, I know he likes to talk basketball and other weird things. You would tell them what they have missed.
I would say I think the largest key to this day in basketball is what the Knicks' rotation is going to look like, who's healthy, who's not, who can play X amount of minutes. And if you want to tie some of these things together to correlate them, one of the things that I'm playing with is looking at a Josh Hart points under, because obviously he's hurt, and tying it in with a guy that would get more of that opportunity, assuming OG Anunoby doesn't play and Josh Hart is somewhat limited. I think going Deuce McBride over his 13.5 points, which he's hit in 3 straight games, even with Hart playing some bigger minutes, tying it into Josh Hart under 11.5, pretty correlated, and plus 280 on a same-game parlay. So these are guys, if you're looking at them individually, you're looking at minus 110, minus 115 on their player props. But part of the analysis for McBride going over is that Hart isn't going to be himself in this game. So I think it's worth taking a stab. You can play them both individually as well. I probably will, but I think it's worth taking a stab at same-game parlaying those two correlated point props in this game at plus 280.
And one of the streaming services you can find this show on is Roku Channel. And Roku Channel today will be covering. What are you guys looking at?
Well,
Drew told us yesterday not to hover over computer on air because people don't really know what we're looking at.
I was going to tell Julian that on DraftKings Sportsbook they have a no sweat NBA same game parlay you can take.
Oh,
so there's
yeah, relay that
no sweat
information.
bet
People
on...
can't see what you're looking at. That looks like a shirtless picture of Julian to me.
That's a different tab.
Anywho, you're also going to have the Red Sox playing on Roku Channel later today.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think a lot of people are going to tune into that.
Okay, well, I mean, that is up to them. That is not up to me. Jules, were you going to add something to
No,
this
I was just going to
picture
say thanks, Steve, and say you can use a no-sweat same-game parlay on that Miles McBride and Josh Hart. Get your money back in bonus bets, I assume it is, if it doesn't hit.
And again, we had David Ortiz on the show because he joined Gojo and Golick on Friday this week, and we did talk a little bit about the Red Sox. Do you think they're able to avoid being swept today, Steve? Which we'll talk about on the Since 1901 a Boston Baseball podcast when we record it here in about 12 minutes from now.
Do I think they're going to avoid being swept?
Yes.
No. I think they get swept today.
Good.
Good.
Hey,
you want
some podcast host you
I think in the past week they haven't won once since we've done like 2 of our pods.
Yeah. But Pavetta's taking the mound here, going against Matthew Liberatore, who is a fine prospect. Had some issues in the majors. Can't get his strikeout numbers up in the major leagues. He was averaging over like a strikeout per inning in the minors. Hasn't really equated to the major leagues yet. But I think that offense is just kind of hitting a rut right now. The team overall just kind of feels like they're hitting a rut. So don't love them today. You get the Cardinals even money on the money line. Not going out of my way to play it, but if you had to ask me who I think is winning, I think Cardinals take this one.
NBA draft's coming up soon, isn't it, Jules?
NBA End of the month. So
End of the month.
June 26th,
Okay.
7th, in that range.
I wanted to bring it up and ask you because yesterday, I think it was yesterday or Friday, Kevin Garnett started to hype Bronny James. We're starting to hear more hype now that he's everything that he's made out to be. And Kevin Garnett started comparing him to Kobe Bryant. And then mentioned, Bronny's obviously got a great, he's got his dad's blood in him. He can go out there and ball like his dad. Yeah, which is very true. So right now the outlook for Bronny James, because again, we're all of a sudden starting to hear it's starting to climb up all these draft boards here. What is the outlook on this kid right now?
Yeah, he's not an NBA player right now. It doesn't mean that he can't be, and because of who he is, he would get drafted coming out early, and teams would take a flyer on him and see what he can develop into. But yeah, anybody else, there's not really much of a comp for him because of his size and his skill set. He's a pretty good defender, good athlete as you would expect, coming from his dad, but he's been listed at 6'4". He measured at the combine at 6'1".
Whoa.
That's a gap. So now 6'4" is an undersized two guard to begin with because he's not a point guard. 6'1" is an unheard of size for a two guard because these type of guys that are 6'1" that can't play point guard don't play in the NBA. So is he going to grow? Is he going to develop point guard skills? One of those two things has to happen if he's going to play one or two in the NBA. But because of who he is, somebody's going to reach, somebody's going to draft him, whether it's because they're curious about developing Bronny James or because they think it gets them LeBron James for a season. So he's going to get drafted, potentially as high as first round, early second round.
Okay.
I know we hung 39.5, which is no longer available as his draft. Oh, it is?
Yep.
Oh, never mind. All right,
okay.
there you go. Under was plus 200. It's now plus 130.
You can bet which team is going to draft him, and he's been so
heavy Lakers favorite there.
Okay, yeah, which they are, plus 180. And then it's a big drop off to the 76ers and Cavs and Thunder at plus 1,000. Is the factor, how much is it still factoring in LeBron wanting to play with his son and thinking wherever Bronny goes, LeBron is going to end up going?
Yeah, I think there's something real to that. That's not a lie when LeBron.
But there were some reports this week that's no longer a thing. That they could potentially end up just being on separate teams.
Yeah, because LeBron has to protect. What if the Utah Jazz take Bronny James? Is that where LeBron's going to finish out his career?
I'd go to Utah. They have an NHL
been
team.
to Utah.
They have an NHL team.
I think they're just kind of covering their bases here.
What's your problem?
That
Sure
makes
did.
sense.
Nothing.
You're rolling your eyes.
Dead air.
Yeah, certainly is. Certainly is. Any other baseball bets you'd like to push today, Steve?
Again, if you want to go back and listen to the show, youtube.com/DraftKings, you can get that at any time.
Joel's a big Alek Manoah fan. He's taking the mound today.
Are you going to end up betting against Alek Manoah? What do you
I'm going to go first 5 team total for the Rays over 1.5.
1.5?
Last I looked, it came down. It was minus 145, minus 150.
No, that would be first 3. First 5 would not be 1.5.
No.
First 5 is
Check.
1.5?
Hold on, talk for a second.
Okay, if it's 1.5, then I'm absolutely taking that because that just seems wrong if it's at 1.5. Because usually that would be 2.5. But regardless, over 2.5 runs.
So Tampa first 5 is 1.5. It's back up to 160.
Okay.
Was as low as 145.
Okay. So I would assume that's going to end up getting at 2.5 by the time first pitch ends up rolling around. But regardless,
You can do 2.5. Sorry, you can do 2.5 for the first 7 innings.
Got it.
Minus 140.
But I like the 2.5 earned runs for over on Alek Manoah in this one here because I mentioned that start against the Twins. He gave up 3 runs. They were all unearned in that one there. But Twins offense, completely different from the Rays offense at this point. The Rays are going to be a much more patient team where the Twins are much more free swinging. That's why the Twins have one of the lowest walk rates in the league, while the Rays are above league average in that sense there. Make Alek Manoah throw some pitches because that's where he really starts to crumble here because with men on base, dating back to last season, 10.3 ERA with men on base for Alek Manoah here. That is obviously something that has been his kryptonite since he's been in the league since last year when he really kind of to falter here, but I like that one a lot. I think Alek Manoah is going to come back down to reality after a good start against the Twins his last time out.
All right, and Jules, you being a big WNBA bettor, I think it's important to mention real quick, Caitlin Clark, best game of her young career through 3 games here, dude. 22 points, 8 assists, 6 rebounds. Team is still winless right now after yesterday.
They lost by double digits again, but they covered.
They did. That's all that matters.
They play the Connecticut Sun again tomorrow, who they lost to pretty badly.
Wait a minute. So is that's like 4 games in like 5 days then? Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, well,
5-ish.
Is that a national game or is that a Brendan Glasheen special?
Yeah, come on, Glash. We need to hear
question.
those angelic vocal
it's on
cords.
the road. Glasheen only.
Oh, right. He's actually
Well, yeah, he still calls road games.
No, he doesn't.
Yes, he does. You want to make a bet?
Wow,
All right,
congratulations to Brendan Glasheen on the promotion, now calling road games.
All right.
Didn't know that.
Thanks, everybody, for putting up with us this
See you next
weekend. We'll
weekend.
see everyone back here next Saturday morning, 8 o'clock Eastern Time.